My husband told me not to call him during his 15-day business trip. But I discovered he was on vacation with his mistress. As soon as I confirmed the truth, I cancelled his cards and put our brownstone on the market. The next day I had 66 missed calls from him. He screamed, "Why did you suddenly cancel the card? How am I supposed to get back to the States?" I just said one sentence that left them both paralyzed. As darkness began to fall, I was tending to the fallopian orchids on the patio. At that moment, my husband Ethan emerged, dragging a suitcase to the entryway. He was still in a suit, but his tie was slightly loosened. The scent of expensive men's cologne, tobacco, and the exhaustion of a hard day mingled, overpowering the clean fragrance of the orchids I had meticulously cared for. After 10 years of marriage, I had grown so accustomed to this scent that I sometimes didn't even notice it, much like our marriage. He looked at me, his gaze passing over me quickly. "I'm leaving. This business trip is important. Some foreign partners have come in, and they want a geological survey of a piece of land for a resort in the Hamptons. We're launching a new project." His voice was flat, devoid of emotion or fatigue. It was just a simple notification, like a weather forecast. I nodded and walked over, pretending to fix his shirt collar. "Why so suddenly?" 15 days, that's a long time." Ethan pulled back slightly. It was an almost imperceptible movement of avoidance, but I noticed it clearly. "This project is top secret, you understand. I need to investigate it thoroughly, and the information can't leak." He took my hand, but his palm wasn't as warm as usual. He warned me, "For security reasons, don't call or text me during these 15 days. I'll have my phone off to focus. I'll call you as soon as the work is done. The house and the garden are in your hands." I smiled, the smile I had practiced for the last 10 years, the smile of a wise, understanding wife. "All right, you're gonna do something important. I'll be fine at home. So go on your business trip with peace of mind." The clatter of the suitcase wheels on the tiled floor echoed loudly, followed by the heavy thud of the iron gate closing. This luxurious brownstone was plunged into a chilling silence. I stood in the middle of the lavish living room, staring at my reflection in the large picture window. 10 years ago, I, Ava Reed, was an ambitious landscape architect with my own brand, Reed Landscapes. But because of Ethan's words, "I need someone to hold down the fort," I gave it all up and retreated to be a stay-at-home wife in this brownstone. I designed every corner of the garden and poured my heart into every flower. I thought I was nurturing our home, but Ethan's coldness had become more apparent over the years. Dinners together at home dwindled, and any affection or concern had run dry. He left early and came home late, and the reason was always work. I blamed myself. Did I do something wrong, or do marriages just wither like this over time? I tried to revive the relationship, but I only got his indifference and sometimes his irritation. Gradually, I grew tired too, and only silence remained in our house. This 15-day business trip and the no-contact request, strangely instead of unsettling me, only made me feel a cold distance that chilled me to the bone. 3 days after Ethan left, the large house felt unusually empty. I spent most of my time tending to my orchid garden. It was the only peace I could find. The Phalaenopsis orchids, the dancing lady orchids, and the purple dendrobiums I had specially ordered from a nursery in Florida were in full bloom. As I was carefully wiping each leaf, my phone on the table let out a ding. I thought it was a promotional text and ignored it, but a second and third ding followed. I sighed, took off my gloves, wiped my hands on my apron, and picked up the phone. On the screen were 3 identical notifications from the bank. My heart skipped a beat. They were transaction alerts from the secondary credit card, Ethan's black card, the one on my account that I had given him for work convenience. My eyes locked on the phrase $4,000 charge at Aria restaurant. Aria, that name was like a needle piercing my eardrum. $4,000. I quickly checked the date and time. The transaction had been made just 10 minutes ago. With trembling hands, I called the bank's customer service line to confirm. The agent, after verifying, told me firmly, yes, Mrs. Reed, a successful payment of $4,000 was made at Aria Restaurant on the Upper East Side, Manhattan. The Upper East Side, not the Hamptons. I hung up the phone and my whole body went cold. The fragrant scent of the orchids suddenly seemed nauseating, suffocating me. I remembered Aria Restaurant all too well. 6 months ago, for our 10th wedding anniversary, I showed Ethan an article about this restaurant. I almost begged him, honey, let's have dinner here for our 10th anniversary. They say it's very romantic and has a beautiful view of the river. At that time, Ethan, his eyes glued to the computer, dismissed me without even a glance. Don't be ridiculous. Look at the price. A single meal costs a month's salary for one of my employees. It's a place for idle rich people to show off. I tried to explain, it's just once in 10 years. But he got annoyed. Don't be so extravagant and frivolous. We can use that money for something more useful. His words threw cold water on my hopes. Our 10th anniversary ended with a regular dinner at home. I consoled myself. He's right, he's a practical person. He cares about big business, not trivial vanities. But today, my husband, who was supposedly doing a geological survey in the Hamptons, the same person who asked me not to contact him, was at Aria and paid a $4,000 bill. What client was he entertaining to be so extravagant? My hands trembled, not from anger, but from the chilling cold that shot up my spine to the top of my head. Had I been living in absolute trust for the past 10 years, or in a perfectly wrapped deception? I looked at the pure white fallopian orchid in front of me, beautiful, immaculate petals, but why did they feel so fragile and hypocritical? He lied to me. Only this thought was clear, and it stabbed my heart like broken glass. He had deceived me. After the initial shock came a chilling calm, like when a person is severely injured, the pain comes later and only numbness remains. I didn't scream or break things. I just went into the house and poured myself a glass of ice water. The cold water went down my throat, clearing my mind, and my brain started to work. What should I do? Should I call him immediately and scream, "Where are you? What are you doing?" only to hear another more elaborate lie? I had already wasted 10 years trusting him. I couldn't afford to be a fool for another second. The truth. I needed the truth. I opened my phone's contact list and scanned through a multitude of familiar names. Mom? No, my mother has a heart condition and would get sick with worry. I needed someone with a cooler head, someone who could act. My eyes stopped on the name Chloe. Chloe had been my best friend since college. Unlike me, who gave up my career at Reed Landscapes to choose family, Chloe was single, a sharp and independent lawyer, and she detested hypocrisy. If anyone could help me at this moment, it was only Chloe. I called. As soon as it rang twice, Chloe answered. Her voice was as cheerful as ever. What's up? Did the lady of the brownstone suddenly miss her poor friend, or do you have another flower planting project? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice from trembling, but it was still choked. Chloe, are you free now? I need your help. Chloe's voice on the other end of the phone immediately turned serious. She knew I wasn't joking when I spoke in that voice. I'm at the office. What's wrong? Your voice sounds strange. What did Ethan do to you? I'm not sure. I tried to sort through the fragments in my head. Ethan said he went to the Hamptons for 15 days. He said it was a secret project, and I shouldn't disturb him with calls or messages. Secret? What? Chloe raised her voice. Smells fishy. What is this? The 1950 seconds a secret from his own wife? I interrupted her and got straight to the point. 15 minutes ago, the black card on my account was used to pay $4,000 at Aria Restaurant on the Upper East Side. There was a silence of a few seconds on the other end of the phone. It was the silence of a lawyer analyzing a case. Aria? Chloe asked. The French restaurant you wanted to go to for your 10th anniversary last year, and he told you it was extravagant? Yes, that's the one. My throat burned. That bastard. I told you not to trust your husband too much. $4,000 is definitely a problem. What do you want now? Should I send someone over immediately? No, I interrupted her again. At that moment, I didn't need a scandal. I don't want to send anyone. I need the truth. You're a lawyer, you have your methods. Investigate who he's with there. Aria is a luxury restaurant. They're sure to have security cameras or a reservation list. Understood, Chloe replied concisely. Send me the card information, your account number, and a clear photo of Ethan. I have contacts there. But Ava, are you really okay? Chloe's voice was full of concern. I looked at my orchid garden. The white petals were still there, beautiful, but why did they feel so luxurious and fragile? I don't know, but don't worry, I won't fall apart. I hung up the phone. I knew that from that moment on, my life would never be the same. I don't know how long I sat motionless on the patio. The sun had set, and only an orange trail remained in the sky, heralding the long night to come. Tonight, the scent of the orchids was no longer fragrant but felt nauseating and suffocating. I didn't eat dinner in the large house. Only the regular ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room echoed. Each tick was like a hammer blow to my empty chest. I tried to deceive myself. Maybe it really is an important business partner. Maybe it's a female CEO that Ethan has to entertain. Maybe $4,000 is just a deposit for a large contract. I tried to cling to that faint hope, but it was shattered when my phone buzzed. It was around 10 p.m., and I received a message from Chloe. It wasn't a text message. Take a deep breath, sit down, and then open this. My hands trembled. I told Chloe I wouldn't fall apart, but my body was betraying me. I felt the blood drain from my face, and my hands and feet turned cold. I clicked on the video file Chloe had just sent. It was only 30 seconds long. The video seemed to have been surreptitiously recorded by a customer from another table or extracted from a security camera. The angle wasn't perfect, but those 30 seconds were enough to end my 10 years of marriage. It was Ethan. He was wearing the same suit I had ironed for him that morning. He had taken off his jacket and looked relaxed. He was sitting in the luxurious and classic space of Aria, and he wasn't alone. Across from him sat a very young woman with long light brown hair, fair skin, and she was wearing a wine-colored silk slip dress. Charlotte leaned back and laughed heartily, then she quickly leaned over the table and used her finger to wipe away some sauce near Ethan's mouth. It was a gesture of blatant intimacy. Ethan didn't pull away. He took her hand, brought it to his lips, and kissed it. 30 seconds, the video ended. I dropped the phone on the cold granite floor. There was a dry clack. I had been betrayed. It wasn't a business partner. It wasn't a passing fling of a middle-aged man. It was a deep secret relationship. He was using my money, the card I gave him, to wine and dine a girl who was half my age. I felt pain in my chest, but strangely I couldn't cry. The tears had dried up long ago. I felt nausea rising in my throat. I had given up my brilliant career at Reed Landscapes. I sacrificed my youth to be the stable support for this liar. I tended my own garden, but now I discovered there was a venomous snake in it. The phone was still lying on the cold floor, the screen already dark, but the 30-second video replayed over and over in my head like a slow-motion movie I couldn't turn off. Ethan holding Charlotte's hand, the loving smile, the kiss on the back of her hand, each scene was like a blade stabbing my already hardened heart. I slid down the cold wall to the floor. This brownstone, this garden, for the last 10 years, I thought it was my heaven and the result of my sacrifice. It turned out to be just a gilded cage, and I was a bird that had locked itself in while the owner went looking for another younger bird. The phone rang. This time, the caller ID showed Chloe. I took a deep breath, trying to contain the tremor that ran through my entire body. I picked up the phone and cleared my throat. I got it. Did you see it? Chloe's voice was urgent and full of rage. I didn't answer. My throat was tight. That bastard Ethan, that damn bastard. Chloe started cursing on the other end of the phone. She could never stay calm when she saw her friend hurt. That girl is Charlotte, the intern from the department. Her face looked familiar. What are you going to do now? Are you going to go over there and smash everything? Chloe, I interrupted her. My voice was hoarse but devoid of emotion, without tears. Huh? Chloe stopped. Surprised probably by the overly calm tone of my voice. Are you at the office now? Yes, I'm here. I was waiting for your call. You are my lawyer, right? Of course I am. What are you saying? I'm your friend. And I took a deep breath. The coldness started to spread from my heart. Throughout my spine. I don't need you to be my friend. I need you to be my lawyer. You are a lawyer, right? You need to be colder than me. There was silence on the other end of the phone. I knew Chloe understood. She switched from the state of a furious friend to the state of a lawyer taking on a case. Speak. I'm listening. Chloe's voice had completely changed. It was sharp and professional. First I stood up and walked to the hardwood desk, where the house documents, bank books and deeds were kept. Prepare the procedures to immediately freeze all of our joint marital accounts. Freeze? Chloe asked. Are you sure? If you freeze them, he'll find out immediately and call you. He'll find out, I replied firmly. But it will be too late for him to do anything. This brownstone is in both our names. The down payment my parents gave me when we got married also became joint marital property after the marriage. I can't let him touch the assets. I noticed the change in how I named him. My beloved husband Ethan had died. In that 30-second video. What remained was just a stranger named Ethan Cole. Understood, Chloe replied. But to freeze joint accounts we need a valid reason. You need to file for divorce so the court will accept the case, which would give us the legal basis to request an emergency freeze. No, I said firmly. Now is not the time to divorce. If I divorce now, I'll be giving him and that woman freedom. I need another reason. I don't want to go to court yet. I looked around the well-appointed room. Chloe, if I report to the bank as the primary cardholder that I suspect my husband is committing fraud or using marital property for illegal purposes, would that be reason enough for the bank to temporarily freeze the accounts? Chloe was silent for a few seconds thinking. Legally, it's sufficient. The bank has the right to temporarily suspend to protect clients' assets, especially if you're a VIP client. But it will cause a scandal. I need a scandal, I said. I want him to realize I'm not the idiot he's been manipulating for the last 10 years. I hung up the phone with Chloe. I didn't allow myself a second of regret or fear. If the pain doesn't kill you, it turns you into steel. And at that moment, I felt my heart had hardened more than stone. 10 years I was a submissive wife. For 10 years. I stepped back and this was the price I had to pay. I immediately looked up the phone number of Mr. Davies, Director of Preferred Client Services at the VIP Bank. He had been the person who managed my accounts for the past 5 years. Always polite. With a kind voice. Calling me on holidays or my birthday to invite me to investment programs or just send a bouquet of flowers. Now, was the time for those preferred services to be needed. It was almost 11 p.m. But the phone rang only 3 times and was answered immediately. On the other end, Mr. Davies' voice was still gentle. Mrs. Reed, good evening. You're calling me at this hour. Is there an emergency? I interrupted him. My voice was surprisingly calm. But it brooked no interruptions. Mr. Davies, I'm calling about an emergency. I need you to handle 2 things immediately. First, cancel the secondary credit card immediately. The card number is... I clearly read out the numbers of Ethan's black card. The numbers I had memorized from paying his statements every month. Cancel Cancel it right now. Mr. Davis seemed shocked. Ma'am, this is a maximum limit VIP card and Mr. Cole is on a business trip. He might have an emergency. I know. I cut him off. And I am requesting the cancellation. I am the primary holder. I have the right. Cancel it now. Yes, understood. I'll take steps to block the card immediately. What's the second matter? His voice was already tense. The second matter is. I took a deep breath. I am Ava Reed, co-owner of the joint accounts. I clearly gave him the numbers of the 3 joint accounts, including the checking account, the stock account, and the $50,000 joint savings account. I request the bank to apply an emergency measure to temporarily freeze all transactions from these accounts. This time Mr. Davies was silent for longer. I could hear him suck in his breath. Mrs. Reed, could you tell me the reason? This matter is very complicated in terms of procedure since Mr. Cole is also a co-owner. The reason is. I emphasized each word. I, the primary owner of the majority of the assets, have sufficient grounds to suspect that my husband, Mr. Ethan Cole, is using the joint assets for illegal purposes and committing fraud. And he is currently showing signs of liquidating assets. Fraud, illegal, liquidating assets. I pronounced these words clearly and concisely. They were the legal terms Chloe had told me to use to force the bank to act in an emergency. The director on the other end was genuinely panicked. Ma'am, calm down. This matter is very serious. If you say so, according to the client protection regulations, I will immediately notify the system to temporarily block all online and over-the-counter transactions. Please come to the nearest branch tomorrow at 8 a.m. to sign the paperwork. Good, I'll be there tomorrow at 8 a.m. I replied concisely. I don't want a single dollar to be withdrawn from those accounts from this moment on. Do you understand? Yes, understood. I'll process it immediately. I hung up the phone. The room fell into an immediate silence. I looked at my hand, which was still holding the phone tightly. It wasn't trembling. For 10 years I used these 2 hands to cook, do laundry, plant flowers, and give him massages when he said he was tired. Now with these 2 hands, I was freezing everything that was his. I had cut off his financial channel. I had cut off his retreat. The $4,000 appetizer at Aria was truly expensive. Now it was time for me to serve the main course. I didn't know how Ethan would react when his black card was declined and he learned he couldn't access any accounts. But I knew he would call me soon and I was ready. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat in the armchair on the patio, looking at the orchid garden shrouded in darkness. My mind was just as dark. Every time I closed my eyes, the 30-second video appeared with cruel clarity. Ethan's kiss, Charlotte's laugh, and a $4,000 bill were a pantomime mocking the 10 years of my youth that I had buried in this brownstone. At 7:55 a.m., I arrived at the door of lawyer Chloe's office. My eyes were swollen from the sleepless night and my unmade-up face was pale. I knew how miserable I looked. Chloe came out of the conference room. She was wearing a tailored black suit and her hair was pulled back into a high ponytail, making her look sharp and authoritative. Her usual cheerful eyes were gone, replaced by a suppressed rage. She pushed a hot cup of coffee at me without a word. Drink it, you look like death warmed over. I shook my head. My throat was dry. I can't. Did you finish everything? Chloe sat down across from me, crossing her arms. I finished at 8 o'clock. I sent your confirmation paperwork to the bank director. Everything is frozen. His black card is now officially a useless piece of plastic. For a moment, a sense of relief washed over me. But it didn't fill the void inside me. Thank you. Chloe looked at me with a penetrating gaze. Ava, now answer me calmly. I'm asking you as your lawyer. What do you want? Just to give him a warning and vent your anger? Or do you want a divorce? Divorce. Why did that word sound so strange and painful? For 10 years I gave up everything to be that man's wife, putting aside my ambition at Reed Landscapes, and now divorce. I really don't know. When I fell silent, Chloe sighed and stood up, pacing the room. Look at me. If you just want to give him a warning, frankly, Ethan will come back. He'll kneel, beg for your forgiveness, and swear that heaven and earth will fall before he changes again. And what then? He'll go back to his old ways. But next time he'll be more secretive, more cunning. You'll live your whole life in doubt. I looked at Chloe. The scene of the kiss at the restaurant appeared again. No, I can't take it anymore. Then it's divorce. Chloe said it as a certainty, not a question. If you decide to divorce, you have to be ready to fight. Ethan is not an idiot. He and his family won't let you go easily with anything. I want a divorce. My voice suddenly became clear. But before I divorce, I want to know exactly what I had for the last 10 years and what he secretly took from me. Chloe smiled. It was a cold, calculating smile. Good. This is the Ava Reed I know. She pulled up a chair and took out a folder. I did a preliminary investigation. The biggest asset is the brownstone on the Upper East Side. It's in both your names. I nodded. The house was like a wedding gift from my parents, who had put up most of the money. I froze the joint savings accounts and the stock accounts. Chloe continued. The problem is he surely has personal accounts. Do you know what his exact salary is? I hesitated. He told me the company held his salary and bonuses in a deferred compensation fund. Every month, he only gave me $2,500 for household expenses, house management, and garden maintenance. Then, I didn't send a text message but called him directly. He answered almost instantly, as if he had been glued to the phone, waiting for my call. Ava, you. He tried to scream again. But before he could finish, I spoke. Yes. My voice was clear, calm, and cold. My composure seemed to surprise him. Mark, a polite middle-aged man, felt awkward. Mrs. Reed, aren't you going to answer the phone? It seems urgent. I forced a smile. No, it's probably just another spam call. I block these kinds of numbers. I put the phone on silent and we continued talking about prices and procedures. But in my mind, I knew the rage on the other end of the phone was growing. That house, that garden, was the passion of my 10 years. But now it was nothing more than a luxurious cage full of lies. Sell it. My voice was dry. Put it on the market immediately. But we have to sell it fast, before he reacts and tries to stop it. Chloe looked at me. Surprise turned to approval. Good, very decisive. I'll call a trusted real estate agent immediately. Now go home, eat something, and get some sleep. It looks like a storm is brewing. The storm Chloe mentioned didn't wait. It arrived that same night. I was sitting in a daze on the steps by the koi pond, watching the colorful fish swim. They lived in their small world, fed every day, and would probably never know what betrayal was. My phone placed on the stone table began to vibrate. The two words, my husband, appeared on the screen. A name I saved 10 years ago. But now it felt like an ineffable mockery. I didn't answer the call. I just sat and watched as the phone rang, went to voicemail, and rang again as if it were in a fit of rage. I ignored it and counted. 1 call, 2 calls. 1 o'clock calls. My phone rang again when I was discussing the quick sale of the brownstone with Mark, the real estate agent Chloe had recommended. Mark, a polite middle-aged man, felt awkward. Mrs. Reed, aren't you going to answer the phone? It seems urgent. I forced a smile. No, it's probably just another spam call. I block these kinds of numbers. I put the phone on silent and we continued talking about prices and procedures. But in my mind, I knew the rage on the other end of the phone was growing. After Mark left, the house fell silent again. I turned on my phone to check. 66 missed calls. 66, what a number. I laughed, but I felt like crying. 66 missed calls. It wasn't because he missed me. It wasn't because he was worried about me. It was because he could no longer spend money. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the multitude of missed call alerts. He had been calling me like a madman for 2 hours. He had probably tried to take his mistress shopping after their extravagant $4,000 meal or pay for a 5-star hotel stay. But it had failed. Just then a new notification appeared. You have a new voicemail. My heart skipped a beat. What had to come had come. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my hands from shaking anymore, and brought the phone to my ear. I had to listen. I had to know his reaction. After a beep, Ethan's voice screamed. Instead of pressing the redial button in a panic, I went to my messaging app. I changed my profile picture. The photo of the two of us smiling happily on our 5th anniversary was deleted. In its place, I put a photo of myself alone next to a dendrobium orchid in full bloom. I was smiling in the photo. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the multitude of missed call alerts. He had been calling me like a madman for 2 hours. He had probably tried to take his mistress shopping after their extravagant $4,000 meal or pay for a 5-star hotel stay. But it had failed. Just then a new notification appeared. In that enraged sound, I tried to search for a trace of regret or concern. But there was nothing. Only rage. He wasn't angry because I discovered his infidelity. He was angry because I cut off his money flow. He was angry because I, the housewife he had always looked down on, dared to humiliate him. Instead of pressing the redial button in a panic, I went to my messaging app. I changed my profile picture. The photo of the two of us, smiling happily on our 5th anniversary, was deleted in its place. I put a photo of myself alone, next to a dendrobium orchid in full bloom. I was smiling in the photo. Then I didn't send a text message, but called him directly. He answered almost instantly, as if he had been glued to the phone, waiting for my call. Ava, you, he tried to scream again. But before he could finish, I spoke, yes. My voice was clear, calm, and cold. My composure seemed to surprise him. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the multitude of missed call alerts. He had been calling me like a madman for 2 hours. He had probably tried to take his mistress shopping after their extravagant $4,000 meal, or pay for a 5-star hotel stay. But it had failed. Just then, a new notification appeared. Chloe scoffed. It was a laugh of contempt. $2,500. You believe that, Ava? He's a senior director in charge of billion-dollar projects, and his take-home pay is only $2,500? He's been playing you for 10 years. I bowed my head. How did your top-secret geological survey in the Hamptons end up on the Upper East Side in Manhattan? There was silence on the other end of the phone, a chilling silence. I could hear his heavy breathing. He was trying to put together the next lie. What nonsense are you talking about? His voice suddenly became lower. He was no longer screaming but probing, panic was evident. Who told you that? I prolonged my voice sarcastically, perhaps your partner said so. The brown-haired partner in a red dress, sitting at Aria. Isn't it a bit extravagant to entertain with a $4,000 meal? You were spying on me. His voice immediately became threatening. The rage of being caught replaced the confusion. I don't care, I replied in a frosty voice. Your job is to entertain well. Oh, and I forgot to inform you of one thing. What thing? He asked cautiously. The brownstone on the Upper East Side, I said and smiled. I knew he couldn't see me, but I felt a strange satisfaction. I put it up for sale. The real estate agent called me this morning and told me there are clients offering a good price. We'll probably sign the papers this weekend. What? This time he really screamed, a sharp shriek full of extreme panic and rage. Are you crazy, Ava Reed? How dare you? That's my house, it's our house. You have no right to do that. Until I get back to the States, get back to the States. You had no right to rent a restaurant to spend our money on your mistress. I raised my voice. I no longer maintained my composure. I froze the accounts, cancelled the black card, and the house will be sold soon. I hope your survey was pleasant. Now figure out how you'll get back to the States. I didn't wait for him to continue ranting. I pressed the end call button with determination. I knew that Ethan, cornered, would call his ally, and his greatest ally was none other than his mother, Eleanor. I was her daughter-in-law for 10 years. I understood this family very well. They had a strange sense of unity, especially when it came to protecting the interests of their precious son. An hour after my tense phone call with Ethan, my phone rang again. This time the screen showed Eleanor. At one time I saved this name with all the respect of a new daughter-in-law. Now seeing it only gave me infinite fatigue. I took a deep breath, trying to sound as normal as possible, and answered. Hello, Eleanor. Immediately, without a greeting, miserable crying poured into my ear through the phone. It sounded like the wailing from a soap opera she loved to watch. Oh my God, Ava, how could you do this to your husband? Will you be satisfied only when that boy dies on the street? I kept silent, letting her cry. This was an act I had seen for 10 years. Every time there was a small conflict in our marriage, she would use tears to resolve it. And the result was always that I had to apologize, even if it wasn't my fault. Since I didn't react, her crying stopped as abruptly as if she had turned off a switch. She switched to a sharp tone. Are you gonna keep playing dumb? Ethan just called me and he was crying. He said you froze his card and his accounts. What are you doing? Who do you think that boy is suffering for? It's for this house, it's for you. How could you be such an unreasonable and inconsiderate woman? Unreasonable, I repeated the word. It was like a dull knife stabbing my ear. I laughed a cold laugh. Eleanor, am I the unreasonable one, or is your son? He told me he went to the Hamptons to investigate, but he used $4,000 of our money to dine at a luxury restaurant on the Upper East Side with another woman. In your eyes, that's him suffering for me? There was a chilling silence on the other end of the phone. I knew Ethan would never have told his mother these costly details. But I underestimated her. Eleanor was a seasoned actress, and after a few seconds of surprise, she immediately changed the script. The crying returned, this time more miserable. Oh sweetie, I know you're hurt. But you have to understand men who can't fall into temptation. Maybe he made a temporary mistake. If you make a scandal like this, people will laugh at our family. You have to handle this privately. Patience is a woman's virtue. If you sell the house, where will the children grow up later? Think about it again. Mistake, I felt like crying, but I actually laughed. Eleanor, where is there a $4,000 mistake? I sacrificed my career at Reed Landscapes to serve at home, and he's using our money to entertain a young woman who is half my age. She stopped crying again and turned nasty. What are you saying so disrespectfully? How dare you talk to your mother-in-law like that? I'm not speaking disrespectfully, I cut her off. My voice was now colder than ice. I'm just telling the truth. I can no longer be the cash cow that this whole family makes fun of. I'm stopping the bleeding before your son uses our money for another woman. I'm tired, I'm hanging up. How dare you, she screamed. If you don't reactivate the accounts now, don't blame me for becoming a monster. I'll go to your house right now. I didn't give her a chance to continue threatening. I hung up the phone with determination. I slumped onto the cold floor. Infidelity, that's how all men are. It turned out everyone knew. They knew and they defended it. They took my sacrifice for granted and considered his betrayal a small mistake. This whole family was rotten to the core. I no longer had any doubts. After the call with Eleanor, I sat in a daze on the cold floor for hours. This whole family was not just defenders, they were accomplices. Together they put on a play, and I was the only stupid character who believed it was real. The pain of emotional betrayal had now turned into rage over the betrayal of intimacy and trust. For 10 years as a daughter-in-law, I considered Eleanor my own mother. But what I got was a knife in the back. I didn't cry anymore. Maybe my tears dried up last night, or maybe the rage froze them. I just felt an infinite disgust. The next morning I woke up with swollen eyes. I tried to swallow some oatmeal, but my throat was dry. Eleanor's call last night was like a poison. It killed my last affection, my last illusion about the family I tried to hold on to. As I was sitting soullessly in my orchid garden, my phone let out a ding. It was a message from an unknown number. I didn't want to open it, but I felt a premonition. I clicked. The account name was Charlotte. The profile picture was a selfie of a young woman pouting, and the first message without a greeting was just a photo. A photo taken on a luxury yacht, behind it the blue sea and clear sky. Charlotte, Ethan's mistress, was wearing a red bikini, flaunting her youth and vitality. She was smiling with the smile of a winner. But what left me paralyzed was the clear image of Ethan reflected in her designer sunglasses. He was shirtless, holding a glass of wine, taking the photo of her. That man, my husband, the same one who screamed at me yesterday that he was humiliated because he had no money. The same one his mother cried about, saying he was suffering far away. It turned out they still had cash. They planned this trip meticulously. They were enjoying and celebrating their triumph with our money. My hands trembled. I was her age once too, and I was also the pride of the brilliant Reed landscapes. But I left that brilliance to choose to be a wife, to choose to be a stay-at-home mom. It turned out I was just a foolish guardian of the safe, watching over the money so he could give it to another woman. Ting, another message came, still from her. Mrs. Reed, Mr. Cole said you are a wise person. He said now that you are older, you should know when to let go. If you want to keep your last bit of dignity. I looked at the phrase older, dignity. She was trying to provoke me. She wanted me to go crazy, to make a scandal, so she could have a pretext to play the role of the innocent victim harassed by the old wife. I looked at the photo for 10 seconds. There was no rage or jealousy, just a disgust, like seeing a triumphant fly sitting on a plate of cold food. I didn't answer. I didn't curse. I did 2 things silently. First, I saved the photo and her message. I sent them to a separate email folder titled Evidence. Second, I deleted the conversation and blocked her phone number. This childish provocation was not worth my attention. My fight was not a response on social media. My fight was a legal battle, a battle for assets. I didn't need the dignity she offered me. I needed to get back everything that was mine. My fight was for the assets, and the biggest asset was this brownstone. The place where I was standing was the product of my 10 years of passion and my parents' wedding gift that cost almost their entire fortune. I couldn't let it fall into their hands. I called Mark, the real estate agent Chloe had recommended again. My voice was calm and clear. Mr. Mark, I've thought about it, I've decided to sell urgently. Can you speed up the process to sell it quickly, even if we have to lower the market price a bit? Mark seemed surprised by my determination, but he was a professional. He just said, Mrs. Reed, don't worry. Your house is a rare gem, it's well located, and you, the landscape architect, designed the garden personally. The clients who saw the photos and virtual tour I took are all captivated. I smiled sadly, captivated. I was the person who loved this house the most. Mr. Mark, this orchid garden is the soul of the house. Tell the clients if they really want to buy the house, please let them keep it. Rest assured, Mark replied. I'll find you a worthy new owner. I thought a quick sale would take weeks, even months. But I was wrong. The power of money and the appeal of this house were much greater than I thought. Just 2 days later, Mark called me again. He sounded euphoric as if he had won the lottery. Mrs. Reed, I have good news, very good news. My heart pounded. What is it? We have a client, not just a client, Mark almost shouted over the phone. It's a heavyweight client. They are Americans who have just returned to the States, and they said they were speechless when they saw the photos and virtual tour I sent. They said the house has very good energy, and the orchid garden you designed is very beautiful. I listened in silence. Mark continued excitedly. They don't want to come and see the house in person. They said they trust your design and want to put down the earnest money deposit immediately. They didn't haggle a single cent off the asking price. They only have one request. What request? I was anxious. They said they want to buy your entire orchid garden. Mark hesitated. They said the house would lose its soul without that garden. They are willing to pay an additional $25,000 for all your precious orchids and maintenance costs. They asked you not to take anything and leave it as it is. $25,000. I stood there in a daze. My 10 years of youth, the 10 years I gave up Reed landscapes, the 10 years of watering, fertilizing, and pruning, were valued at $25,000. It was ridiculous, but at the same time, I felt recognized, at least. Someone recognized the value of my silent sacrifice. Even if they didn't know the story behind it. Okay, my voice was choked. Tell them I accept. I'll leave everything. Excellent, Mark rejoiced. So, can we schedule the signing of the purchase agreement for this weekend? They want to pay 90% in cash in one go. I hung up the phone and looked at the garden. For 10 years it was my joy and my pride, and the gilded cage that trapped me. Now it was the key that freed me. Goodbye, my private Reed landscapes. Thank you for giving me my first $25,000 to start a new life. The news that I froze the accounts and put the brownstone up for sale spread miraculously, faster than the wind. I assumed Ethan and his mother in their rage must have called everyone they knew to slander me, pressuring me to look like the cruel and heartless wife. And the well-meaning people began to appear. The first call was from Laura, Ethan's cousin. I always respected her for her understanding and gentle tone of voice. Ava, her voice on the other end was full of awkwardness. I heard what happened. Ethan was wrong. He was very wrong. I gave him a piece of my mind. But Ava, she hesitated. I kept silent and waited. You're a woman, you have to understand. Men are weak. He made a mistake. If you make a scandal like this, it just embarrasses the whole family. Handle it privately. You have to be patient. That's what being a wife is about. If you sell the house, where will the children grow up later? Think about it again. I hung up the phone. I didn't want to hear any more patience. I was patient for 10 years. I was patient to the point of losing my career and my youth. And now I was supposed to be patient so he could give my money to his mistress. The second call was from Andrew, Ethan's best friend. This time it was the tone of a man who understands Ava. It's Andrew. I really laid into Ethan. But you're his wife. You have to understand his temper. If you cut off all his money, how is he supposed to live? He's stuck abroad. And if he does something impulsive, it's not good for you. If he collapses, you have to give him a way out. A way out? I felt like crying but I laughed. Who gave me a way out when I gave up Reed landscapes to be a housewife? Who gave me a way out when he embraced a young mistress at Aria? I didn't answer Andrew. I hung up again. And then came a flood of persuasive messages from college classmates and the lady next door, who was worried because I didn't look happy lately. They all advised me to calm down, to think about it again, to forgive. I was fed up. I was fed up with this hypocritical advice. They didn't live my life. They weren't in this house. They don't know what I endured for the past 10 years. They were just on the outside judging. I turned off my phone. I was too tired to talk to anyone else. I wanted to be alone. I went into my home office, a room I had barely entered for the last 10 years. There was a thin layer of dust on the bookshelf. And there were my books on landscape architecture, bonsai art, and garden design. And on the wall hung the first 3D design blueprint of Reed landscapes, which I finished after working all night. It was once my pride and my ambition. I sat down and turned on the computer. It had been too long since I had touched the design software. My hands trembled a little, but my brain seemed to wake up. I opened a new file and started drawing. I drew a rooftop garden on a skyscraper full of sun, with hanging orchids and a small koi pond. I was drawing my new life. Once finished, I opened my social media without thinking. I posted only one photo, the screenshot of the 3D design I had just finished, and wrote a single caption. First draft for a new rebooting Reed landscapes. I turned my phone back on. There were no text messages or calls. For the first time in 24 hours, my phone was silent. The well-meaning people had fallen silent. They no longer advised me to forgive. They knew I wasn't playing games. I wasn't just leaving Ethan. I was rebuilding my own empire. My post successfully silenced the persuasion of my friends and relatives. But it also became the fuse that lit the dying powder keg of Ethan Cole. He had now completely become that man, a stranger, an enemy in my mind. He had failed to use his mother to pressure me. He had failed to persuade me through his friends. Now he decided to confront me himself. He was surely still stuck abroad without a penny in his pocket. The rage of being financially cut off added to the shock that I dared to publicly sell the house and restart my career turned him into a beast. The first message came from a new account. The name meant nothing to me, but I was sure it was him. Ava Reed, you really are something. How dare you put my house up for sale? How dare you announce your new life? Who do you think you are to use that old name, Reed Landscapes again? I read the message, still rage, still arrogance. He still thought I was the weak kitten from 10 years ago. He still thought I would be afraid of him. I didn't answer. I did only one thing. I screenshot it and sent it to Chloe. Additional evidence, threatening content. A few hours later, since I didn't reply, a second message came. This time the language was more vulgar and threatening. You're going to play dumb? You think you can sell the house without my signature? Don't even dream of it. When I get back to the States, I won't forgive you. How dare you touch my assets? How dare you touch my mother? You'll see. I'll make you kneel and beg for my forgiveness. I read the message, but my heart didn't flinch. You won't forgive me? I haven't been at peace for the last 10 years. I lived in a false peace, bought at the cost of my career and my pride. Now I'd rather be myself than a false peace. I screenshot it again and sent it to Chloe. Thread evidence #2. A day passed and I didn't answer. His rage couldn't solve his hunger or turn into a plane ticket. He began to be afraid. A man accustomed to luxury and being served, now trapped in an unknown place without money. Rage couldn't defeat desperation. And around midnight, the third message came. This time from an unknown phone number. He had probably borrowed it from someone. The tone had completely changed. Ava, honey, those 2 words made me nauseous. The man who was threatening and growling at me just a moment ago was now trying to put on a pathetic face. Ava, I was wrong. That girl deceived me. I fell into her trap. Believe me. As I read, I just laughed. Even at this moment, he was still blaming someone else. He still thought I was a fool who would easily fall for a few sweet words. The next message came immediately, as if he was afraid I wouldn't read it. Ava, I really have no money. I'm stuck here. I'm so hungry, honey. Don't you have any feelings left for me? And then came the line I knew was coming. It's 10 years. 10 years of marriage. How can you do this? 10 years he dared to mention 10 years. The 10 years I buried my youth in the kitchen. The 10 years I gave up my ambition. The 10 years I worked like a slave for his family. He was trying to trade those 10 years for a plane ticket and forgiveness, for his $4,000 meal with his mistress at a restaurant. Ava, open the accounts for me so I can come back. Just give me money for a plane ticket. Let's come back and talk. I'll fix everything. I'll kick that girl out. I'll kneel and beg for your forgiveness, Ava. I looked at the phone screen. My heart was cold. Affection. The word sounded so cheap coming from his mouth. I screenshot it again and sent it to Chloe. This time I titled it Additional Evidence, Manipulation and Pleading. I turned off my phone and threw it on the velvet sofa. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat, a heavy, tired beat. Ethan's false plea didn't move me, but it filled me with disgust. 10 years he dared to mention the affection of 10 years. Yes, 10 years. I had to find out how he valued those 10 years. The post about Reed landscapes was a momentary impulse of rage. But now it reminded me of who I was. I was not just a crying housewife. I was an architect once, someone who worked with numbers and logic. Now it was time to use that logic to price this marriage. I went into Ethan's study, a room I had barely set foot in for 10 years. He always said it was his private space that I shouldn't touch. The smell of tobacco and old paper stung my nose. I turned on the light. Everything was artificially tidy. I opened the drawer of the hardwood desk where he kept important documents. Of course, it was locked, but I was his wife for 10 years. I knew where he kept the spare key, under the money plant in the corner of the room. The arrogance of a man who thought himself clever and thought his housewife would never find it. I opened the drawer. The documents were neatly arranged in folders, contracts, insurance, and bank statements from numerous accounts I didn't even know existed. He told me $2,500 a month was all the family's expenses. It turned out it was just the tip of the iceberg. I sat on the floor and spread everything out. My eyes fixed on the numbers. My already cold heart now felt like someone was squeezing it. Expense reports in the 6 figures, cash withdrawals, and entertainment expenses that occurred weekly. And here was his official salary account. The real number was 5 times what he told me. 5 times. I laughed, but I felt like crying. I lived in a gigantic deception. I was not his wife. I was a housekeeper who was paid $2,500 a month to take care of this brownstone and this garden. While he was building another home with our money, the money I saved by giving up Reed landscapes. The $4,000 meal at Aria wasn't a mistake. It was a habit. And it was just one of countless performances that I had no knowledge of. I was so foolish to fall for the hold down the fort at home. I trusted the promise of you stay at home and I'll take care of everything. It turned out he was really taking care of everything in his world, a world without me. I sat in the pile of documents until the first sunlight shone through the crack in the door. The coffee had long gone cold. I felt disgusted, but I couldn't stop. I had to know everything. And my eyes stopped on a particular transfer record, a recurring transfer. It wasn't as large as the other expense reports, only $2,500, but it was as regular as clockwork. My eyes, already dry from the sleepless night, felt pricked by the letters. Internal transfer beneficiary, Mrs. Rosa Gomez. Amount, $2,500. Exactly the same amount he gave me every month. He was transferring exactly the same amount to another woman named Mrs. Rosa Gomez. A woman's intuition whispered to me that this was not a simple problem. With trembling hands, I moved the mouse and checked the transaction history. June 15th, May 15th, April 15th. I scrolled back, and my heart began to pound. This was not a recent expense. It had been ongoing. I kept scrolling. My mind grew colder and colder. 2 years. Oh my God. For 2 years without fail, exactly $2,500 transferred on the 15th of every month. I quickly took out the calculator and typed. 2,500 multiplied by 24 months. 60,000. Who was Mrs. Rosa Gomez? I searched my memories, a completely unknown name, not my relative, much less Ethan's. I was sure, friend, no one transfers $2,500 to a friend every month for 2 years. A chill ran down my spine. This was not a mistake, as Eleanor said. This was not an infidelity. This was a plan, a long-term systematic plan. He wasn't just having an affair. He was supporting another woman. He was investing our money, the money I saved by giving up Reed Landscapes, in another woman. This betrayal was far crueler than the 30-second video. The kiss at Aria could be lust, but $60,000 transferred over 2 years was calculation, intentional deception, and a complete disregard for me. Who did they think I was? An idiot, an ATM? I didn't cry. I couldn't cry anymore. I only felt rage, a cold rage that surged from the depths of my heart. This rage was enough to burn these 10 years of false marriage. I didn't call Ethan. I didn't text insults. I did only one thing. I screenshotted all the transaction records to Mrs. Rosa Gomez from the first month to the last. I captured the total number, $60,000. I sent everything to Chloe with a single line of message. Chloe, investigate who Mrs. Rosa Gomez is and what he supported with our $60,000 for the last 2 years. I sent the message. It was 6 a.m. I knew Chloe was an early riser. I had to shower. My body smelled of hatred and cold sweat from the sleepless night. I stood under the shower. The hot water poured over my body, but I didn't feel warm. I felt cold to the bone. $60,000. The number kept running through my head. He took from me, but I don't just want a divorce. I don't just want half the assets. I want everything. I'll make him pay for these 10 years of youth, principal plus interest. I arrived at Chloe's office at 9 a.m. I was not the soulless, swollen-eyed woman from a few days ago. I wore the white suit I used to defend the first Reed Landscapes project. My hair was pulled back, and my makeup was carefully applied. I was here not as a betrayed wife, but as a partner coming to discuss an important deal. Chloe looked at me, and her gaze changed from surprise to respect. You're amazing. I was worried you'd lock yourself in the house crying or do something foolish. I smiled coldly. Crying, Chloe? Tears can't get back $60,000. Good. Chloe tapped the desk with a pen. Then let's get to work. With this $60,000 proof, we can not only file for divorce, but for fraudulent dissipation of marital assets. If we go to court, you'll definitely get the majority of the assets. He won't be able to lift his head. You just have to sign here. Chloe slid a folder at me. Just as I was about to pick up the pen, Chloe said suddenly, "Wait." I looked at her. No, it's nothing. Chloe didn't look at me. She frowned, her eyes fixed on her computer screen. I asked my paralegal to double-check the brownstone's information on the property registry for your sale, Eva. Chloe's voice suddenly turned serious. Come and see this. A premonition worse than when I heard Mrs. Rosa Gomez's name woke up in my heart. I went over to Chloe's computer screen. It was the title deed information of my house. Look at this. Chloe pointed to the small print in the notes section. Your house has a lien on it. It's mortgaged. Mortgaged? I repeated mechanically. That doesn't make sense. I didn't sign any documents. This house was my parents' money. It's mortgaged? Chloe's voice was like a wedge. And not for a small amount. He took out a $500,000 loan against it. If 60,000 was a slap in the face. 500,000 was a bullet that hit me straight in the head. No, it's not possible. I screamed. My hard-won composure completely crumbled. Chloe, a $500,000 loan requires my signature. I'm a co-owner. Never. Calm down. Chloe grabbed my shoulder and shook me hard. Listen to me, look at the date of the mortgage. I squinted and checked the date. 6 months ago. Exactly 6 months ago. Chloe said, her voice filled with rage. Remember, did you sign any strange documents 6 months ago? 6 months ago. My head was spinning. 6 months ago, yes. At that time, Ethan told me the company needed a large capital for an important project. He said it was a golden opportunity. He brought a thick folder of documents and told me to sign quickly, saying they were internal documents and his boss was waiting. Oh my God. I crumbled. I signed. He said it was an internal guarantee document. He pointed to where to sign. I didn't read, Chloe. Oh, Chloe. Chloe slammed her fist on the desk. The boom sound startled me. That bastard tricked you. He tricked you into signing a power of attorney or a mortgage consent. He took $500,000 from your parents' house. I didn't hear anything else. $60,000 he used to support his mistress. And this $500,000. Where did this $500,000 go? Top secret survey trip to the Hamptons project. Suddenly I understood everything. He didn't go to investigate. He went to finalize that $500,000. He was planning to escape. He was going to leave with $500,000 and his young mistress, leaving me with a foreclosed house and a gigantic debt. The $4,000 meal at Aria was just the celebration of his successful deal. Ava. Chloe's voice brought me back to reality. Her face was pale, but her eyes were burning. Listen to me carefully. This is no longer just a divorce. This is no longer a civil case. She grabbed my hand tightly, emphasizing each word. This is a crime. Your husband is a criminal, fraud and embezzlement. I looked at Chloe. The tears had dried up. The pain was gone, and only a cold emptiness remained. Yes, I said in an eerily calm voice. What should I do with a criminal, Chloe? What's the procedure for filing a criminal complaint? Chloe's voice echoed in the quiet office. Criminal fraud. Penal. Each word was like a hammer blow to my chest. $500,000. The number was so large it felt abstract. It was no longer money. It was an abyss. I must have staggered. Chloe quickly held me up and sat me down in a chair. Ava, are you listening to me? You have to calm down. Now is not the time to faint. Calm down. How could I calm down? 6 months ago. I remembered vividly. Ethan came home, his face full of excitement. He talked about a golden opportunity, an internal investment project that the company only offered to executives. He said it was the opportunity to change our lives and that I would never have to worry about anything again. He brought a thick folder full of technical jargon that I didn't understand. He flipped through the pages, pointing to an X. He said, sign quickly. My boss is waiting. It's just an internal guarantee procedure. We have to trust each other as a couple, right? Don't you trust me? I trusted him. I trusted him as I had for the past 10 years. I signed without reading a single word. I signed the power of attorney or the mortgage consent. I signed the death sentence of my marriage and my assets. How stupid I was. The emotional betrayal hurt me. But this financial deception, this cold calculation to embezzle, using my absolute trust, filled me with disgust. He was not just a bad husband. He was a professional con man. Chloe. I looked at her, and my voice was dry. 60,000 Hughes to support his mistress and this. 500,000, what was he going to do with this $500,000? Chloe looked at me, her eyes full of pity but also of firmness. You still don't know. He scammed you. He used your parents' house, your assets, to borrow. 500,000. He was preparing to escape. He was going to leave with that. 500,000 and his mistress, leaving you with a gigantic debt and a house that would be foreclosed on by the bank. I felt my heart stop. Selling the house. Now, selling this house was not revenge. It wasn't even to stop the bleeding of marital assets. It was a necessity. I had to sell this house to the buyer. I needed the 90% cash they promised. I needed that money not to get rich, but to immediately pay off the illegal $500,000 debt to the bank. If I didn't pay, the bank would foreclose, and I, as the co-owner, the person who signed under deception, would be the first to be held responsible. I would lose everything. I would lose the house, my parents' money, and be in debt for life. Ethan Cole, he didn't just want to leave me. He wanted to. She was just the prize he gave himself after a successful fraudulent deal. And the $4,000 meal at Aria. Oh my God. I let out a dry laugh. The $4,000 party at Aria was their high point. And this was the hell they created for themselves. I lived in silence for 2 days. The next message was a photo, a selfie but not a pretty face. One cheek was swollen. Ethan began to turn pale. Next, the screen changed to the brownstone's mortgage contract. The number 500,000 was enlarged, followed by the result of the signature analysis. The signature of Mrs. Ava Reed is concluded to have been obtained under fraudulent pretenses. That's nonsense. Ethan screamed. You signed it yourself. You still trying to lie? I opened my mouth. It was the first time since he entered. You said it was an internal guarantee document, right? Ethan was speechless. He looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. And finally, Chloe pressed the last slide, the folder of double contracts that Charlotte brought. This time Ethan didn't scream. He just sat there panting, sweat was pouring down. He knew there was no way to deny it. At that moment, Mr. Herrera, the lawyer from J Capital spoke. His voice was low and firm. Mr. Cole, I represent the J Capital Investment Fund. We have obtained all these documents. We are officially reporting you for commercial fraud and embezzlement. You have been deceiving us for 5 years. No, Mr. Herrera, I was deceived. That girl Charlotte, she seduced me. Ethan turned to me. He tried to crawl out of the chair and kneel. Ava, save me, tell him to stop. 10 years, it's been 10 years. I looked at him. The man I once loved was groveling at my feet. My heart didn't stir. There was no pity or satisfaction, only an emptiness. Mr. Cole, I said. You don't need to beg me or Mr. Herrera. The person you need to talk to is not us. Ethan looked panicked. Just then the conference room door opened. 2 uniformed police officers and 2 detectives in plain clothes entered. Mr. Ethan Cole, said one of the detectives, showing his badge. We are the NYPD's Financial Crimes Task Force. I didn't need to do any charity work to prove I was okay. I just had to live well and do my job well. For 10 years as a housewife, I learned how to tend a garden. Now I would use that skill to tend my life and make other people's lives more beautiful. I took a deep breath. The smell of coffee, paper, and the smell of freedom. My real life had just begun. End of story.